Peace, peace, y'all. Welcome, welcome. We are going over the UCC Connection code book, and I'm so happy to be here. Excuse me if I get us up on the different platforms. Thank you guys for being in alignment with me and reading the Meet Your Strawman book, which was a very interesting read. Zeke, you want to share some things that you learned reading Meet Your Strawman?
How to address the post office, as well as your capitalization for your name being your strong man, how we are seen as soldiers and pawns
Mm-hmm.
to the federal bank.
Mm-hmm. You learned a lot. I learned a lot about like the basis of a lot of wars, the history of the petrodollar, and how it was being enforced on other countries. And it makes a lot of the things that we're experiencing and going through in the present, make sense, because we got BRICS going on. You got not just BRICS. You got uh different kind of wars. Just talk about World War III and all that information, and it just makes a lot of those things make sense as to why they're still like egos first and making sure they implement this plan. And it started like a handful of presidents ago. It's not a new concept. We can't sit here and blame a president that we're more so aware of over top of other presidents or whatever. It ain't nothing like that. Um, and so yeah, very interesting stuff. So today we're going to read the UCC Connection, how to free yourself from legal tyranny. Happy is a man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding, which is Proverbs 3:13. 3 being the number of understanding, 1 of knowledge, and then understanding again. So having knowledge in the midst of understanding and expression. Um, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3 come together and makes 4. That's foundation and things. 3 plus 4 equals 7. That's God. So the numbers is adding. The numbers is numbering. Peace, Gort. How you doing? Welcome to the Knowledge Keepers Club. We are reading a book about the UCC connection. Do you know anything about the UCC codes? And if you do, share it in the chat. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from consent in the governed. So this article has really filled the voids that keep me from fully understanding things. I found it to be one of the best discussions on the subject of freedom and how our own government has managed to take that freedom away from us, all while giving lip service to the Constitution. The title of this article is The UCC Connection. The noteworthy author is Howard Freeman. It is dated September 22nd, 1991. The UCC Connection, How to Free Yourself from Legal Tyranny. This is the foreword. This is a slightly condensed, casually paraphrased transcript of tapes of a seminar given by Howard Freeman in 1990. It was prepared to make available Mr. Freeman's knowledge and experience in his search for an accessible and understandable explanation of the confusing state of the government and the courts. It should be helpful to those who want to develop a deeper understanding of this information without having to listen to 3 or 4 hours of recorded material. The frustrations many Americans feel about our judicial system can be overwhelming and often frightening, and like most fear, it's based on a lack of understanding or knowledge. Those of us who have chosen a path out of bondage and into liberty are faced eventually with the seemingly tyrannical power of some government agency and the mystifying and awesome power of the courts. We have been taught that we must get a good lawyer, but that is becoming increasingly difficult, if not impossible. If we are defending ourselves from the government, we find that the lawyers quickly take our money and then tell us that the ship is sinking. I can't help you with that. I'm an officer of the court. Ultimately, the only way for us to ever have a snowball chance is to understand the rules of the game and to come to an understanding of the true nature of the law. The lawyers have established and secured a virtual monopoly over this area of human knowledge by implying that the subject is just too difficult for the average person to understand, and by creating a separate vocabulary out of English words of otherwise common usage. While it may at times seem hopelessly complicated, it is not that difficult to grasp. Are lawyers really as smart as they would have us believe? No. Besides, anyone who has been through a legal battle against the government with the aid of a lawyer has come to realize that lawyers know procedure, not law. Exactly. Oh my God, my lawyers irritate my soul, because all they know is procedure. They are so fucking stupid. Lawyers are not that smart. I promise you. We give, we be watching all of these like law television shows. These guys are fucking idiots. They're idiots. They don't have no common sense. Anyway, then answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, thus saying thou reproachest us also. And he said, Woe unto you also, ye lawyers! For ye led men with burdens grievous to be borne, and ye yourself touch not the burdens of with one of your fingers. Woe unto you, lawyers! For ye have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourself, and them that were entering in ye hindered. Christ teaches his disciples at Luke 11:45-52. Besides, anyone who has been through a legal battle against the government with the aid of a lawyer has come to realize that lawyers learn about procedure and not law. Mr. Freeman admits that he is not a lawyer, and as such, he has a way of explaining law to us that puts it well within our reach. Consider also that the framers of the Constitution wrote in language simple enough that the people could understand specifically so that it would not have to be interpreted. So again, we find, as in many other areas of life, the buck stops here. It is we who must take the responsibility for finding and putting to good use the truth. It is we who must claim and defend our God given rights and our freedom from those who would take it from us. It is we who must protect ourselves, our family, and our posterity from the inevitable intrusion into our lives by those who live parasitically off the labor, skill, and talents of others. Hold on, I'm doing a sound check. Okay, yeah, it works. Um, to these ends, Mr. Freeman offers a simple, hopeful explanation of our plight and a peaceful method of dealing with it. Please take note that this lecture represents one chapter in the Book of Understanding, which he is always refining, expanding, improving. It is all as all bits of wisdom are, a point of departure from which to begin our journey into understanding, so that we might be able to pass to others greater knowledge and hope, and to God the gift of lives lived in peace, freedom, and praise. Because when we're at peace, we give off a certain electromagnetic field as a unit, and that controls the electromagnetic field of the earth. And that influences the electromagnetic field of the universe. If we're always on edge and we're always sad and we're depressed, what kind of energy do you think you're putting out into the nature?
Negative.
Negative. And that's why you see more volcanoes, more storms, more all these things, because the universe is responding to our stress. Oh, y'all stressed the fuck out? We finna tear this whole shit up. It's like they're fighting on our behalf and they're ripping everything out. You know what I'm saying? But instead of us being in alignment and giving praises to Oya and Ogun and all the other storms and things that are coming, because they're stopping their space, because they are doing these things for us, because they're destroying the things that are stressing us, right? If society is stressing you, then nature's going to come in and destroy the society. But we be like, no, 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 we didn't mean destroy the buildings. Da, da, da. Like, we're being ungrateful. It's coming to help us, and we're crying because we like our abuse. You know what I'm saying? So it's having that, and that's why you can't serve two masters. You're either going to serve the master that man made for you, or you're going to serve the master of God and nature. You can't do both at the same time. It would be nice to try it too. You could try to, but you're going to feel that roll string. It's either you're going to try to make money off of your gift, and you're never going to have enough money, or you're going to, go full on your gift, or like, go into the capitalistic world and you're making a lot of money, but it's fucking up with your moral and integral code to do so. So it's like, find a balance. And that balance doesn't look like all the American dream. It looks like the dream God gave you, being in nature, the garden. You know what I'm saying? So again, us healing our stress levels and stuff like that is helping with our connection with nature, is helping with the way nature responds to us. And then thus the universe responding to us as well. So we got to be mindful of that too. Um, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 10:16. Introduction. When I beat the IRS, I used Supreme Court SC decisions. If I had tried to use these in court, I would have been convicted. I was involved with the Patriot Group and I studied Supreme Court cases. I concluded that the SC had declared that I was not a person required to file an income tax and that tax was an excise tax on privileges granted by the government. So I quit filing and paying income taxes, and it was not long before they came down on me with a heavy hand. They issued a notice of deficiency, which had such a fantastic sum on it that the biggest temptation was to go in with their letter and say, "Where in the world did you ever get that figure?" They claimed I owed them $60,000, but even if I had been paying taxes, I never in the world had that much money, so how could I have owed them that much? Section 1. Never argue with the amount of deficiency. Fortunately, I have been given just a little bit of information. Never argue the facts in a tax case. Maxim arguments are for fools. If you're not required to file, what do you care whether they say you owe $60 or $60,000? If you are not required to follow, the amount doesn't matter. Don't argue the amount. That is an issue of fact. In most instances, when you get a notice of deficiency, it is usually for some fantastic amount. The minute you say I don't owe that much, you have voluntarily agreed that you owe them something, and you just have to give them and you have just given them jurisdiction. Just don't be shocked at the amount on the notice of deficiency, even if it's $10 million. If the lawyer says that you are not required to file or pay tax, the amount doesn't matter. By arguing the amount, they would just say that you must go to tax court and decide what the amount is to be. By the time you get to tax court, the law issues are all decided. You're only there to decide how much you owe. They will not listen to the arguments of law. So I went to see the agent and told him that I wasn't required to file. He said, "You are required to file, Mr. Freeman." But I had all these SC cases and I started reading them to him. He said, "I don't know anything about law, Mr. Freeman, but the code says that you are required to file and you're going to pay that amount and or you're going to go to tax court." I thought that someone there ought to know something about law, so I asked to talk to his superior. I went to him and I got out my SC cases and he wouldn't listen to them. "I don't know anything about law, Mr. Freeman." Finally, I got to the problems resolution officer and he said the same thing. He said that the only person above him was the district director. So I went to see him. By the time I got to his office, they had phoned ahead and his secretary said he was out. But I heard someone in the office and I knew he was there. So I went to see him. Oh, I went down the elevator around the corner to the federal building and into Senator Simpson's office. There was a girl sitting there at a desk and she asked me if she could help me. I told her my problem. I said that I really think that the district director is up there. I asked her to call the IRS and tell them that it was Senator Simpson's office calling and to ask if the district director is in. I said, "If you get him on the phone, tell him that you are from the senator's office and you have a person whom you are sending over to speak to him. If he is, can he just wait 5 minutes?" It worked. He was there, so I ran back up to his office. His secretary met me when I came in and said, "Mr. Freeman, you're so lucky. The director just arrived." The director was very nice and offered me coffee and cookies, and we sat and talked. So he asked me what I wanted to talk to him about. If you've never have someone say to you, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," watch out. But we could turn that around and approach them the same way. So I said, "I thought you ought to know that there are agents working for you who are writing letters over your name that you wouldn't agree with. Do you read all the mail that goes out to this office over your signature?" The director said, "Oh, I couldn't read everything. It goes out here by the bagful." That was what I thought. I said, "There are some of your agents writing letters which contradict the decisions of the Supreme Court of the United States, and they're not doing it over their name, they're doing it over your name." He was very interested to hear about it and asked if I had any examples. I just happened to have some with me, so I got them out and presented them to him. Supreme Court cases supporting Freeman's position. The director thought it was very interesting and asked if I could leave this information with him, which I did. He said he would look it over and contact me in 3 days. 3 days later, he called me up and said, "I'm sure, Mr. Freeman, that you will be glad to know that your notice of deficiency has been withdrawn. We've determined that you're not a person required to file. Your file is closed and you will hear no more from us." I haven't heard another word from them since. That was in 1980, and I haven't filed since 1969. Section 2, the Supreme Court on trial. I thought for sure that I had the answer, but when a friend got charged with willful failure to file an income tax, he asked me to help him. I told him they would have to prove that he willfully failed to file and I suggested he should put me on the witness stand. He should ask me if I spoke at a certain time and place in Scotts Bluff, and did I see him in the audience. I should then ask, he should then ask me what I spoke about that day. Excuse me. When I got on the stand, I brought out all the SC cases I had used with the district director. I thought I would be lucky to get a sentence or two out before the judge cut me off, but I was reading whole paragraphs and the judge didn't stop me. I read one and then the other and so on. And finally, when I read just about as much as thought I should, the judge called a recess of court. I told Bob I thought we made it. There was just no way they could rule against him after all that testimony, so we relaxed. The prosecution presented its case, and he, Bob, decided to rest his case on my testimony, which showed that he was not required to file and that the SC upheld his position. The prosecutor then presented his closing statements, and we were just sure we had won. But at the very end, the judge spoke to the jury and told them, "You will decide the facts of this case, and I will give you the law. The law required this man to file an income tax form. You decide whether or not he filed it." What a shock! The jury convicted him. Later, some of the members of the jury said, "What could we do? The man had admitted that he had not filed the form, so we had to convict him." As soon as the trial was over, I went around to the judge's office, and he was just coming out through his back door. And I said, "Judge, by what authority do you overturn the standing decisions of the United States SC? You sat on the bench while I read that case law. Now, how do you, a district court judge, have the authority to overturn decisions of the Supreme Court?" He says, "Oh, those were old decisions." I said, "Those are standing decisions. They have never been overturned. I don't care how old they are. You have no right to overturn a standing decision of the USSC in a district court." Mm. Section 3, Public Law versus Public Policy. He said, "Name any decision of the Supreme Court after 1938 and I'll honor it. But all the decisions you read were prior to 1938. He went on, "Prior to 1938, the Supreme Court was dealing with public law. Since 1938, the Supreme Court has dealt with public policy. The charge that Mr. S was being tried for is a public policy statute, not public law. And those Supreme Court cases do not apply to public policy." I asked him what happened in 1938. He said that he had already told me too much. He wasn't going to tell me any more. Put a pin in that. 1938, public policy. Write that down. We're going to expound on that later. Section 4, 1938 and the Erie Railroad. Well, I began to investigate. I found that 1938 was the year of the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of the Supreme Court. It was also the year the courts claimed, it was also the year that the courts claimed they blended law with equity. Excuse me, I read the Erie Railroad case. A man has sued the Erie Railroad for damages when he was struck by a board sticking out of a boxcar as he was walking along beside the tracks. The district court had decided on commercial law, negotiable instruments law, that this man was not under any contract with the Erie Railroad and therefore he lacked standing to sue the company. Under common law, natural law, he was damaged and he would have had the right to sue. This overturned a standing decision of over 100 years. Oh, that makes sense why my case is being treated the way it is. Because it's commercial law. They don't give a fuck what happened to my body. We're not in natural law. Bitches. Okay. Swift versus Tyson in 1840 was a similar case, and the decision of the Supreme Court then was that in the case of this type, the court would judge by common law, which is natural law, of the state where the incident occurred. In this case, Pennsylvania, in the Erie Railroad case, the Supreme Court now ruled that all federal cases will be judged under the negotiable instruments law. There will be no more decisions based on the common law at the federal level. So here we find the blending of law with equity. This was a puzzle to me. As I put these new pieces together, I reasoned that all our courts since 1938 were merchant law courts and not common law courts, merchant law courts. Put that underneath the 1938. And also write down negotiable instrument law. Section 5, a friend in court. Fortunately, I made a friend of a judge. Now, you won't make friends with a judge if you go into a court like a wolf. Yes. and also merchant law court. Did you write that? No, it was some. Oh, negotiable instruments law. That's what I meant. Hey, Scorpio. Is that the book? Yes, the book is my picture. It's the UCC Connections. How was y'all day? How's y'all Saturday going? Fortunately, I made a friend of a judge. Now, you won't make friends with a judge if you go into court like a wolf in black sheep country. You must approach him with as though you are the sheep and he is the wolf. If you go into court as a wolf, you have to make demands and tell the judge what the law is, how he better uphold the law or else. Remember the verse, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We have to go into court and be wise and harmless and not make demands. We must be humble and play a little dumb and ask a lot of questions. Well, I asked a lot of questions and boxed the judges into a corner where they had to give me a victory or admit they didn't want to admit. I won the next case, and on the way out, I had to stop by the clerk's office to get some papers. One of the judges stopped and said, You're an interesting man, Mr. Freeman. If you're ever in town, stop by, and if I'm not sitting on a case, we will visit. Mine was cool. Mine was cool. I had a bunch of readings to do. Now I'm reading this book. It's a good day. I'm glad you had a good day. Oh, telling you at work. How's work going? Section 6. America is bankrupt. Later, when I went to visit the judge, I told him of my problem with the Supreme Court cases dealing with public policy rather than public law. He said in 1938, all the hired judges, the top attorneys, and the U.S. attorneys were called into a secret meeting, and this is what we were told. America is a bankrupt nation. It is owned completely by its creditors. The creditors own Congress, they own the executive, they own the judiciary, and they own the state governments. Take silent judicial notes of this fact, but never reveal it openly. Your court is operating under admiralty jurisdiction. Call it anything you want, but do not call it admiralty. Write that down. Admiralty jurisdiction. Yeah, this is about the UCC and how we are no longer under natural law or common law. We are under what was it? Merchant law,
Commercial.
commercial law. So like it's not about what natural law and what's right, what's wrong, and you being a person. Now it's about procedures.
Procedures and which one can cost more for which side to
Mm-hmm.
receive money for the federal bank.
Yup. Like Indian laws, yeah. But Indian laws was more like natural laws in alignment or a reflection of universal laws. They covered that all. Everything is commercial now. It's commercial because there is no country. The country been gone, but they didn't tell the people. So Section 7 is admiralty courts. The reason they cannot call it admiralty jurisdiction is that your defense will be quite different in admiralty jurisdiction from your defense under common law. In admiralty, no court has jurisdiction unless there is a valid international contract in dispute. When you know it is admiralty jurisdiction and they have admitted on record that you are in admiralty court, you can demand that the international maritime contract to have to which you supposedly party and which you supposedly have breached be placed into evidence. No court has admiralty maritime jurisdiction unless there is a valid international maritime contract that has been breached. So you say just innocently like a lamb, well, I never knew that I got involved with the international maritime contract, so I denied that such a contract exists. If this court is taking jurisdiction in admiralty, then place the contract into evidence so that I might challenge the validity of the contract. What they would have to do is place the national debt into evidence. They would have to admit that the international bankers own the whole nation and that we are the banker slaves. Section 8, not expedient.com. But the bankers said that it is not expedient at this time to admit that they own everything and could foreclose on everything, every nation of the world. This is the key behind the buildup of the United Nations as a military force. This is the key to disarming America. This is the key to ending the Cold War. Like now, we have no more enemies, so we can melt all our guns. Wrong. The bankers plan to foreclose. They just don't want their heads blown off while doing it. So they dictate the Congress to get rid of the guns. The reason they don't want to tell everyone that they own everything is that there are still too many privately owned guns in America today. There are uncooperative armies and other military forces. So until they can gradually consolidate all armies into a world army and all courts into a world court, it is not expedient to admit the jurisdiction of the courts as they are under the law. It is not expedient to admit the jurisdiction of the courts they are operating under. So what about the people who was here before they came? Well, the people that was here before they came, thank you. They did that whole destiny shit. They came on the land, the conquistadors. They had um their little monologue about how they were ordained under God, and this is the trust. And that's when they was kind of trying to come under natural law or whatever. But then they started playing the commerce game, and so then that's when they started fucking it up. When we was reading the Meet Your Strongman book, we got into that heavy about how like they were taking people's gold in exchange for paper. And then they did, I don't know what they did with the gold, but they didn't have the gold no more. So then they started playing with the oil dollar. And then, you see the petrodollar being weird. And when they started moving the money to the oil, by then the government was already gone. That was after 1938. So in that space, well, yeah, that was all around the same time. It was happening all the same time, 1938, 1933. That's all within like 5 years of each other, of them going bankrupt, to where like now the Federal Reserve owns the country. So whatever the Federal Reserve needs, that's why when they say, "Oh, we're going to war," it's always a bank thing. It's always about the banks. The $5 Indian, yeah. So they had to manifest destiny. You have the people that look like us, but they were like, if you get into the book of Noah, you got Shem, Ham, and Yafet, right? Yafet was up at the top, with the lighter tones. Shem was more so at the bottom, South America ish kind of area, South Africa ish, when those lands were closer, and then Ham was more so like near like the equator type vibe. So then you had those three spaces, and that was the first split up of the main continent. The one continent was the big three pieces, right? So then you got the Hamites. They started chilling. They started aligning with Yafet. This is why it's important to know the Bible and the lineage in the Bible, and that's why our parents kept the Bible and put our marriages and births and deaths in the Bible. Um, but when the first combination of lineages that started interlining was Yafet's lineage with the Hamites, and that's where you get these $5 Indians from, and they resemble the Shemites or whatever, but they're not the Shemites. They just look like us, and that's just more so getting caught up in the skin tone because we're all rusted brown. But at one point in time, we wasn't brown; we was different colors, so it was easier to point certain shit out. That's my story on that. Have you ever heard that the Bible borrowed all its stories? The Bible is the stories. The Bible is our story. As above, so below, as within, so without. You can look at the Bible in so many different ways, from bloodline to lineage to the history of the tectonic plates to the history of the constellations and the stars. When you look at it, you'll see how much there's nothing new under the sun. And it's only 2,000 years ago. It was only 2,024 years ago. That's not a long time when you think about it, because like people in my life lived to be 100. So that's like 20 grandmothers for me. That's not a lot of grandmothers when you think about it. Like, granted, that's way longer than my personal lifetime if I want to be selfish and into myself. But when I think about like a bloodline, that's only 20 grandmothers. That ain't hitting on shit, for real, for real. So yeah, the Bible. You ever heard of the missing books in the Bible? Yeah, I've heard of the missing books and the different theories about what the missing books and stuff are, and how those are the keys that actually help you read the Bible for what it is. I've heard about that. Have I ever sat and read them? What is that supposed to be? Like the book of Enoch that was given to Metatron, and it was given to Noah when he was building the ark, and um I believe the book was given to somebody else before that, but he tossed it into the ocean, and then it washed up and was given to Noah. Apocrypha, is that the book, Scorpio? Because I'll check that out. That could be on the list of things to read. Okay, so until they can gradually consolidate, blah 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 blah. We understand these things. We realize that there are certain secrets they don't want to admit, and we can use this to our benefit. Section 9 is jurisdiction. The Constitution of the United States mentions three areas of jurisdiction in which the courts may operate. Section 10, common law. Common law, or natural constitution law, is based on our Creator's laws as originally presented by Moses. Anytime someone is charged under common law, there must be a damaged party. You are free under common law to do anything as you please as long as you do not infringe on the life, liberty, or property of someone else. You have a right to make a fool of yourself provided you do not infringe on the life, liberty, or property of someone else. The common law does not allow for any government action which prevents a man from making a fool of himself. For instance, when you cross the state line, you will probably see a sign which says, "Buckle your seatbelts, it's the law." This cannot be common law because who would you injure if you did not buckle up? Nobody. This would be a compelled performance, but common law cannot compel performance. Any violation of common law is a criminal act that is punishable. And that's when you see, what is it, Aline Talik Bay and all of them talk about walking around with the Constitution in your back pocket and stuff. I would rather walk around with Moses' laws, but I'm aware that the 10 is not just 10, it's way more than 10, but they only give us the 10. But even with the 10 that they give us, it still over trumps the policies and stuff like that. I heard Noah has a real story too, not just animals on the ship. Oh yeah, Utna Fish Tim, he wasn't playing about nothing. Equity law. Equity law is law which compels performance. It compels you to perform to the exact letter of any contract that you are under. So if you have a compelled performance, there must be a contract somewhere, and you are being compelled to perform under the obligation of the contract. Now, this can only be a civil action, not criminal. In equity jurisdiction, you cannot be tried criminally, but you can be compelled to perform to the letter of the contract. If you then refuse to perform as directed by the court, you could be charged with contempt of court. This is criminal action. Are our seatbelts equity law? No, they are not. Because you cannot be penalized or punished under equity jurisdiction for not keeping to the letter of the contract. This has, of course, changed since publishing of this article, so read on. Section 12 is admiralty or maritime law. Admiralty is a civil jurisdiction of compelled performance, which has criminal penalties for not adhering to the letter of contract, but this also applies to international contracts. Now we can see what jurisdiction the seatbelt laws and all traffic laws, building codes, ordinances, tax codes, etc. are under. Whenever there is a penalty for failure to perform, such as willful failure to file, that is admiralty maritime law, and there must be a valid international contract in force. However, the courts don't want to admit that they are operating under admiralty maritime jurisdiction, hereafter noted as AM. So they took the international law or law merchant and adopted it into our codes. This is what the SC decided in the Erie Railroad case, that the decisions would be based on commercial law or business law, and that there would be criminal penalties associated with it. Since judges were instructed to not call it AM jurisdiction, they call it statutory jurisdiction. I looked for statutory jurisdiction in the fourth edition of Black's Law Dictionary. It's not there. So I looked up statute, and under its definition is this paragraph. This word is used to designate the written law in contradiction with the unwritten law. Foster versus Brown. Unwritten law is common law. Contradistinction mean as opposed to opposed to. Mm, mm, mm. Okay. You can stop at page 20. In fact, I'm going to finish this page and then you can stop at page 20. So, section 13, courts of contract. You may ask how we got into the situation where we could be charged with failure to wear seatbelts and be fined for it. Isn't the judge sworn to hold up the Constitution? Yes. But you must understand that in Article 1, Section 10, the Constitution gives us the unlimited right to contract as long as we do not infringe on life, liberty, or property of someone else. Contracts are enforceable, and the Constitution gives two jurisdictions where contracts can be enforced: equity or admiralty. But we find them being enforced in statutory jurisdiction. This is an embarrassing part for the courts that we can use to box the judges into a corner in their own courts. We will cover this more later. Section 14. Contracts must be voluntary. Under the common law, both parties must enter into every contract knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally for the contract to be unenforceable and void, or the contract is unenforceable and void. These characteristics of a common law contract. There is another characteristic. The contract must be based on substance. For example, contracts used to read, "For $1 and other valuable consideration, I will paint your house," etc. That was a valid contract. The dollar was a genuine silver dollar. Now, suppose you wrote a contract that said, "For one Federal Reserve note and other considerations, I will paint your house." And suppose, for example, I painted your house the wrong color. Could you go into common law court and get justice? No, you cannot. No substance, no contract. You see, a Federal Reserve note is a colorable dollar as it has no substance. And in a common law jurisdiction, that contract would be unenforceable. Colorable, that which is an appearance only and not what it purports to be. Hence, counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth, which is from Black Law Dictionary, 5th edition. So now you can read section 15 and stop at page 20. Like, don't read page 20.
Mhm. Colorable money and colorable courts. The word colorable means something that appears to be genuine but is not. Maybe it looks like a dollar, and maybe it spends like a dollar, but is not redeemable for lawful money, silver, or gold. It is colorable. Buy it. Fake. False. If a Federal Reserve note is used in a contract, then the contract becomes a colorable contract, and colorable contracts can only be enforced under a colorable jurisdiction. So by creating Federal Reserve notes, the government had to create a colorable jurisdiction to cover the kinds of contracts that use them. We now have what is called statutory jurisdiction. Oh my God,
Hmm.
statutory jurisdiction, which is not a genuine admiralty jurisdiction. Judges are enforcing a colorable admiralty jurisdiction because we all are using colorable money. Colorable admiralty is now known as statutory jurisdiction. So let's see how we get under the statutory jurisdiction. Section 16, Uniform Commercial Code. The government established a colorable law system to fit the colorable currency. It used to be called the law merchant or the law of the redeemable instruments because it dealt with paper, which was redeemable in something of substance. But once Federal Reserve notes
Right.
had been declared unredeemable, there had to be a system of law which was completely colorable from start to finish. This system of law is codified as the Uniform Commercial Code (UCC) and has been adopted in every state of the Union. This is colorable law, used in all of the courts of the nation. I explained one of the keys earlier, which is the country is bankrupt and we have no rights. If the master says jump, the slave had better jump, because the master has the right to cut off his head. As slaves, we have no rights. But the creditors, masters, had to cover up that fact. So they created the system of law called the UCC. This colorable jurisdiction under the UCC is the next key to understanding what has happened. Section 17, Contract or Agreement. One difference between common law and the UCC is that in common law, contracts must be entered into: 1. Knowingly, 2. Voluntarily, and 3. Intentionally. Under the UCC, this is not so. First of all, contracts are necessary, but under the UCC, agreements can be binding, and if only exercise the benefits of an agreement if it is presumed or implied that you intend to meet the obligations associated with those benefits. If you accept a benefit offered by government, you are obligated to follow every statute involved with that benefit. So their method is to get everybody exercising a benefit, and then don't even and then they don't have to tell the people what the benefit is. Some people think it's the driver's license, the marriage license, or even birth certificate. I believe it's none of these. Section 18, the compelled benefit. I believe the benefit being used is that we all have been given the privilege of discharging debt with limited liability. Instead of paying debt with substance, when we pay a debt, we give substance for substance, equal value for equal value. If I buy a quart of milk with a silver dollar, that dollar paid for the milk paid for the dollar, substance for substance, pound for pound. But if I use a Federal Reserve to buy the milk, I have not paid for it. There is no substance in the Federal Reserve note. It is worthless paper given in exchange for something of substantive value. Congress offers us this remedy in the form of a benefit, debt money, fake money, authorized by the federal United States, can be spent all over the continental United States, and is declared legal tender for all debts, public and private, and the limited liability is that you cannot be sued for not paying your debts while you discharge the charge using this colorable money. So they said, we're going to help you out. You can discharge your debts instead of paying your debts. When we use this colorable money to discharge your debts, we cannot use common law courts. We can only use colorable law courts. We are under the jurisdiction of the UCC. We are not using non-redeemable negotiable instruments, and we are discharging debt rather than paying debts. Section 19. Remedy and recourse. Every system of civilized law must have two characteristics, remedy and recourse. Remedy is a way to get out from under the law, and recourse is if you have been damaged under the law. You can recover your loss. The common law, the law of merchants, and even the UCC all have remedy and recourse. But for a long time, we couldn't find it. If you go to a law library and ask to see the UCC, they will show you a shelf of books completely filed with the UCC. When you pick up one volume and start to read it, it will seem that you have been intentionally written to be confusing. It will seem to have been intentionally written to be confusing. It took us a long time to discover where the remedy and recourse are found in the UCC. They are found right in the first volume at UCC 1-207 and 1-103. Section 20. Remedy. The making of a valid reservation of rights preserves whatever rights the person possessed at the time, and prevents the loss of such rights by application of the concepts of waiver or estoppel. UCC 1-207.7. It is important to remember when we are going into court that we are in a commercial international jurisdiction. If we go into court and say, I demand my constitutional rights,
Mhm.
I'm losing it here.
It's okay.
No, it is not.
That's how they want it set up. They want you losing it, so you give up. Let me get that water bottle over there. No, the one with the represented. Gracias.
It is important to remember when we go into the court that we are in a commercial international jurisdiction. If we go into court and say, I demand my constitutional rights, the judge will most likely say, you mentioned the Constitution again, and I'll find you in contempt of the court. We don't then understand how he can do that. Hasn't he sworn to uphold the Constitution? The rule here is you cannot be charged under one jurisdiction and defend under another. For example, if the French government came to you and asked where you filed your French income tax for a certain year, do you go to the French government and say, I demand my constitutional rights? No. The proper answer is the law doesn't apply to me. I am not a Frenchman. You must make your reservation of rights under the jurisdiction in which you are charged, not under some other jurisdiction. So in a UCC court, you must claim your reservation of rights under the UCC 1-207, now changed to UCC 1-308. Section 21. UCC 1-308 goes on to say, when a waivable right or claim is involved, the failure to make a reservation thereof causes a loss of the right and bars its assertion at a later date. UCC 1-308.9. You have to make your claim known early. Further, it states, the sufficiency of the reservation, any expression indicating an intention to reserve rights is sufficient, such as without prejudice. UCC 1-308.4. Whenever you sign any legal paper that deals with the Federal Reserve notes in any way under your signature, write without prejudice or without prejudice UCC 1-308. This reserves your rights. You can see at 1-308.4 that you have sufficiently reserved your rights. It is very important to understand just what that means. For example, one man who used this in regard to a traffic ticket was asked by the judge just what he meant by writing without prejudice on his statement to the court. He had not tried to understand the concepts involved. He only wanted to use it to get out of paying for the ticket. He did not know what it meant. When the judge asked him what he meant by signing it that way, he told the judge that he was not prejudiced against anyone. The judge knew that the man had no idea of what it meant, so he lost the case. You must know what it means. Section 22. Without prejudice. UCC 1-308. When you use without prejudice or without prejudice UCC 1-308 in connection with your signature, you are saying, I reserve my right not to be compelled to perform under any contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. I do not accept the liability of any compelled benefit or any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. What is the compelled performance of an unrevealed commercial agreement? When you use Federal Reserve notes instead of the silver dollars, is it voluntarily? No. There is no lawful money, so you have to use Federal Reserve notes. You have to accept the benefit. The government has given you the benefit to discharge your debts. How nice they are. But if you have not reserved your rights under 1-308, you are compelled to accept the benefit and are therefore obligated to obey every statute, ordinance, and regulation of the government at all levels of government, federal, local, and state. If you understand this, you will be able to explain it to the judge when he asks, and he will ask. So be prepared to explain this statement to the court. You will also need to understand UCC 1-103, argument and recourse. If you want to understand this fully, go to a law library and photocopy those two sections from the UCC. It is important to get the Anderson version. Some of the law libraries will only have the West Publishing version, which is very difficult to understand. In Anderson, it is broken down with the decimals into 10 parts, and most importantly, it is written in plain English. Section 23, Recourse. Recourse appears in UCC at 1-103.6, which says the code is complementary to the common law, which remains in force, except where displaced by the code. The statute should be construed, because it's not construed in harmony with the common law, unless there is a clear legislative intent to abrogate the common law. UCC 1-103.6. This is the argument to use in court. The code recognizes the common law. If it did not recognize the common law, the government would have to admit that the United States is bankrupt and completely owned by its creditors. But it is not expedient to admit this. The code was not written to entirely override the common law. Therefore, if you have made a sufficient, timely, and explicit reservation of your rights, pursuant to ICC 1-308, you can insist that the statutes be constructed in harmony with the common law.
Yes. Maybe it's 20.
Yes, I didn't read 20.
Oh, look at you. So Article 1 court, yeah. I like this. Talking about we getting our feet wet with the UCC codes with UCC-1. There's also UCC-3 and the UCC-5. Those three universe uniform commercial codes are like main things to utilize. I was told by someone that they resemble the Hammurabi codes, which I would have to read myself. So don't quote me on that. I'm quoting someone else. But I will look into that on my own too. As we get deeper and deeper into this book, we're gonna be hearing more and more about the UCC codes. I wonder what that is. And how to sign things and fill things out. And we'll also be getting more into that when it's 30 days. After we finish this 30 days, Brandon also has a UCC course. So I'm actually going over the UCC course on my lonesome right now, but I will be watching it again with you guys after we finish these 30 days. Because I'm trying to get me a car. I need an RV. I need a house. I need shit. And me getting hit by a car put a lot of prevention on being able to do it the right way. Well, not the right way, the slave way. So I got to do it this way. But now we're gonna get started on the video.
Do you smell?
There is electromagnetic energy in that pyramid between 200 and 600.
Smell it? You smell the freedom? Yo, if you got through video number 5 and you're not like literally trying to jump off your balcony or out of a window, hats off to you, man, because it's just it's rough. And I just reviewed video number 5. I always review the videos when I finish them. I always review them before I move on to the next one. And I saw where I kind of fucked up when I was typing in the fake social security number. I must have hit the number on my numpad here. Number 1 is for camera 1, and number 3 is for camera 1 and camera 3. So you can see here, I'm switching them back and forth. So I used the numpad for the social security number, and somehow I don't know what happened, but basically I hit the second camera thing, or the first one, and it turned off the screen camera. But yeah, I know it was, you might have to get a piece of paper or something, man, and just draw it all out over and over and over again, draw it all out. And frankly, if you're really, really, really lost on that last video and you're just really, really struggling, you might want to get some fucking like clay or something and like work the whole thing out on a big ass like table or something like that. Big, huge drawings or use like objects or use clay and like, really, really put the time into this and really, really take the time and effort to understand all of this, because we are talking about the difference between the freedom, and there's a lot of people out there who care more about their family than they do about themselves. And I've seen it a million fucking times. And you know what? That's fine. I'm not even here to judge. But whether you're watching this for you, or whether you're watching this for your family, or whether you're watching this for somebody else, your success in what you're doing, whether it's for yourself or for other people, I really don't give a fuck. depends utterly and entirely on you really, truly, conceptually understanding every single thing that I'm going over in these videos. Like, I really, really want you guys to get it. So I reviewed the last video. It is intense. It is a big jump up from what we've been doing the previous videos, but it is what it is. I'm dead serious. There's no way for me to really softball it any more than I did. So I really, really hope you guys are still with me. I do strongly suggest, if you need to go back and watch that last one a couple more times, or draw it out or do something with it, do so before you continue on the course. And if you're jumping around and watching random videos, oh my God, that's death. That is death. This entire course is designed to be watched from the beginning to the end. And to not do that, ooh, dangerous. You enjoy a dangerous life, my friend. Anyways, let's go on to video number 6. I hope you guys are excited. I still got my pink shirt on. So, yeah. And it's June. Wait, is it June? Oh, shit, it's still June. It's Pride Month. You guys think I'm gay now, don't you? That's all right. A lot of guys think I'm gay. I'm not fucking gay. Anyways, video number 6. Here we go. So you are realizing at this point that you are becoming a foreigner when you do all this. So when you start slicing these contracts up, slice and dice, you're becoming a foreigner. You're like, boom, you're that much more of a foreigner. You're that much more of a foreigner. Boom, boom. You're that much more of a foreigner. You pick up one of these bad boys and you go, bah, 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 bah. That contract's gone. You're that much more of a foreigner. A foreigner, by definition, is someone who's not associated with or connected with a zone or a person or a thing or a group. But the thing is that you don't want to be associated with any of these fucking things. People are like, oh, you're going to be, this and that, and a foreigner. Hey, I'm not saying that you have to be a foreigner. I'm not saying that you have to be connected to all these things. Hey, dude, if you want to be connected to whatever the fuck you want to be connected to, go for it, man. I'm not telling you what to fucking do. I'm not telling you to go and kill all your contracts. I mean, the point of this course is that you need to be educated on the terms of the contract, what the contract means, where the contract is located, what the contract means in terms of how it affects your life and your family and your friends and your children and your spouse. And then you need to make an educated, determined, self-determined decision where you stand there and you say, I want to be contracted. I do not want to be contracted. Now, I'm assuming 99.99% of people, when they learn what they're really contracted into, they're going to want to fucking get out of it as soon as humanly possible. Could be wrong. Hey, if you want to be contracted, fucking go for it, dude. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. My job, I'm the trustee and you're the beneficiary at this exact moment in time. My job is to do everything I can to give you everything you can to now turn around and become the trustee to benefit other people with this information, whether it be yourself, whether it be your family, whether it be your children. Some people, a lot of people, you're going to see all these videos. If you have kids, and I know there's going to be people who are going to be like, oh my God, I just had children last week and I signed their certificate of live birth. I signed all their social security documents and oh my God, they could have been free and I fucked up their whole life. That's not necessarily true. So first off, you can get out of a lot of that. Second off, when you do sign all that documentation, there's a bunch of money that they're going to be able to have access to when they get older, outrageous sums of money. Now, if someone's having kids and they're thinking about like, oh my God, like, should I sign these documents or not? I go kind of back and forth on it in my head. Like if I had a kid tomorrow, I don't have kids, by the way. If I had a kid tomorrow, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough to say. I would, in some of my previous documentation, I think even in my theory page, I say that I would sign the documentation, but here I am. It's, I'll show you guys by flipping the camera over. You can see the date and time. It's 6:02 p.m. on June 25th, 2022. At this exact moment, I probably wouldn't sign any of the documentation, but I might flip back over. I might change my mind. It's so close. Where's my hands? It's so close of what I would do, man. I really, really couldn't tell you. It's so close. So the benefit of not signing any of the documentation is your kid, man. I mean, they are going to experience the kind of freedom that most people, and when I say most people, I mean like 99% of Americans, they can't even fathom, dude. Like they are so, I'm like uncontracted as fuck, right? But if you don't sign those fucking documents and you don't sign the certificate of live birth and you don't sign the social security documentation, holy fuck, dude. Like your kids are going to enjoy an uncontracted life, the likes of which no one can even imagine. There's a couple problems with that. The first problem is like they have to learn how to stay uncontracted. They're going to get offered contracts constantly, and they're going to have all these potholes and stuff that they're going to have to learn how to not step in. And it can be done. It's not horribly, terribly difficult, but there is some complexity to the fact that they're so uncontracted that they're almost like an alien race. They're going to have to get a special kind of passport to really operate in society at all, unless they just do completely family related, under the table related transactions, which is fine. At that point, they can do that without any repercussions. When you sign for the birth certificate and when you sign for the Social Security, you're going to have the kid's going to have access to a whole shitload of money. Now, fully transparent, I've tried like hell to access my trust account, which we're going to go over a little bit later. I've tried like hell to access other people's trust accounts. I know people who have accessed their trust accounts successfully. The last time I filed documentation and checks to pull money out of my trust account, I think was March 28th. So it's been almost 3 months. The problem is that this year, 2022, at the beginning of the year is when all this state national shit and all the fucking trust shit and all the Sesta KV trust shit, all this shit started blowing up like crazy. And so the Treasury, the United States Treasury, which is the ones who administer all of our trusts, they're the trustee and we're the beneficiaries. Dude, they're probably fucking completely annihilated. Like to the point where they're probably at, 800, 1,500, 2,500x what their normal inflow and submission is. So I haven't seen shit. I haven't heard shit. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's kind of why at this point I'm a little bit, and this could change again. So this is kind of a weird thing to say because this could change. But if I get a bunch of money in a month or 2 or 3 months or 4 months, it's going to change my mind completely. Like if I get a bunch of money in a month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, I'm going to definitely be like, oh, fuck yeah, you should sign up for your kid's Social Security account and you should sign up for the certificate of live birth. But right now, sitting here on this fucking couch with this pink flaming fucking shirt on that I have on right now, I'm a little bit, I'm a lot of bit more on the end of I probably wouldn't sign shit. I'd probably tell the nurses and the doctors to go fuck themselves. If I was having a kid today, right? Now, keep in mind, you can always sign, I think it's like an SS5 form. Bro, you can be like 10 years old or 5 years old or 15 years old or fucking 25 years old, and you can sign for a fucking SS5 and get a fucking Social Security number. I mean, when you have a kid, you're not standing there in the hospital under fucking anesthetic drugs and fucking blood and pain and beeping fucking machines with a gun to your head like, do or die, now or never, motherfucker. Like, it's not like that. It's really not like that. You can do an SS5 anytime you want. Anytime you want. There's people coming into the country all the time that are flying in and they're 37. They're from Guatemala and they're going to fucking sign an SS5 or whatever the fucking form is. So, I mean, you also got to think too, like in the world of the law, in the law's mind, does the child have the ability to determine what he or she wants? I mean, if you really, 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 really want to go all the way with this shit, and you want to be like, I want to raise the best fucking kid ever, and you the kind of person who would watch this kind of a video course is the kind of person who would fit that category. You know, let them fucking decide. Is kind of also part of my idea too. It's like, dude, when they're 16, when they're 18, when they're 19, when they become a fucking man or a woman, and they have their rights and they become an adult, let them fucking decide. If they want to sign an SS5 when they're 18, they fucking do it. You know what I mean? Like, let them fucking do it. That's a little bit more of where I'm at this point. It's a tough one. I don't have kids. So, you know, for me to sit here and tell you how to fucking, you know, what to do with your children is fucked. I'm not going to do that. I'm just kind of putting myself in that position a little bit and kind of trying to think in my head what I would do. I don't know, man. I mean, if you don't sign that documentation and you have them kids, it is such a level of freedom, and they just need to learn a few things like this course. Oh my God. That's a whole new generation of humanity right there. Have them watch this course. Don't sign any fucking papers. They don't need a social security number for anything. So what happens is, this might be a later video and I'm going way crazy. I don't think it is, but I'm just going to, so in order to get any sort of bank account or employment, they have to have a passport. So what they're going to get is, you're going to see my passport section, and they're going to have to do an explanatory statement stating that they never signed documentation. And I don't really know exactly how you would do that, because normally to get a 5-star passport, the highest level passport, you have to put your certificate of live birth in the submission for the passport, which we're going to go over later. It's total speculation. I don't even know. I would imagine in order to get a passport, you would have an explanatory statement, and it would state, you know, I don't know. I don't know if you would just have the kid go physically into the passport, like the main passport center, maybe like a little family field trip, go to the main, try to find the highest of the highest of the highest of the levels of passport stations, and go in there and tell them that they were born at home and it was a midwife, or they were born at the hospital and the papers were never signed and blah, blah, blah. I don't know how you would do it exactly, but they would get a passport basically. And then that passport would allow them to get employment. And then if you opened up a trust for them, and then they did all their business through the trust would have an EIN number, an employment identification number. And then with the EIN number, they could get bank accounts, they could do credit card processing, etc. I mean, I'm trying to make this course as evergreen as possible. So I don't know where we're going to be at in 10, 20 years. I'll probably reshoot these at that point. But just a little a side note, you know, you're learning all this stuff, and I know people are so protective of their kids, and they want their kids to do so well, especially the kind of people who would watch a course like this. So my whole point of this side piece is to just say, hey, don't beat yourself up, man. I mean, you're here, your kids are gonna, I mean, anybody who's watching this course, you get your kids the kind of passport and kind of education we're talking about in this course, man, your kids are going to have, I mean, they're going to have a better life than Jeff Bezos and fucking Elon Musk. I mean, really they are, because the kind of freedom and the kind of education that they're going to get from you, being super mom or super dad watching this thing, it's so far beyond what money can buy. I mean, really, I'm serious. It really is. If I could be reborn right now and I had a choice between super mom who knows about all this information, or super mom or super dad who's got $20 billion. Oh, dude, without question, I want the information. I want the freedom. I want the citizenship status. I want the tax status. I want, boom, like no question. Absolutely no question. So, yeah, a little side note on that. You're becoming a foreigner more and more and more and more to a lot of what's going on. But you're not becoming a foreigner to other people who know what's going on, and you still have a choice. You always have a choice. You have a choice. Every group, everything, every subsection, every this, every that, every contract, boom, boom, boom. You're going to see what it is. You're going to analyze it, and you're going to say, hey, I either want that contract, I want to change that contract. You can do that too, or I want to kill that contract. I'm in the category of like kill everything. So that's me. That's my style. Might not be your style. Dude, I want to fucking obliterate, annihilate, Rambo, Terminator. I want to fucking paint my face, lock and load. Like, here, dude, I have fucking magazines filled with fucking ammunition. Like, I just want everything gone. And then if I want to contract later, I'll contract later in a new unit of time. Like, but for right now, the past like 6 months of my life has been nothing more than just find, locate, kill. You can always recontract. There's nothing stopping you. There's one area that you can't recontract into, which we're going to get into. But besides that, there's really nothing else. So that said, I wasn't even planning on talking about any of that. So that said, we're going to get into the term sovereign citizen. This fucking term is hilarious. So at this point, you've already learned what citizen means. Citizens means bitch. So there, I don't know who it was. Maybe the CIA or the FBI or whatever. They decided to make up this term, sovereign citizen. And then they go and they take people who've learned like one or two small pieces of information about all of this, and they're fucking retarded, and they got half their teeth missing from crystal meth, and they decide they want to go into a courtroom, and I don't know, they're coming down off of meth, after the 10th day, and they decide they want to mouth off to some judge. I don't know. I don't know what it is. So sovereign citizen is a complete oxymoron. It makes me laugh very hard. Sovereign citizen. So a sovereign is a king. A sovereign is the one who creates the rules. A sovereign is the government. A sovereign is the master of his own domain. The sovereign is what men would consider the pinnacle of masculinity. The sovereign is what a woman would consider the position of a queen. The sovereign is someone who does not contract into something that they themselves do not genuinely want to be contracted into. They don't contract into anything because of guilt, because of pity, because of shame, because of misunderstandings, because they don't want to hurt someone's fucking feelings. The sovereign is someone who is separated, but it has this kind of connotation of being like completely separated. Yeah. But they contract into those things that are truly of benefit to them, or of which they can truly be beneficial to others. Like, hey, look, here I am making this fucking course. This course is free, bro. Like, it's fucking free. I mean, you think to yourself like, well, why is this guy doing this? And my intention is to give this course away for free. I'm going to pay and do paid ads out of my own pocket to give this course away. And people are like, well, why? And it's like, well, it's my fucking choice to contract the way I see fit. It's my fucking choice to do what I want to fucking do with my life, with my information, with my money. Doesn't fucking matter. Like, I don't really give a fuck what you think or what anybody else thinks. So a sovereign person or a sovereign group, they are the king. They are the royalty. They are the ultimate deciding factor. And really, honestly, it really just comes down to a decision. Like, I'm the sovereign. I'm doing what I'm going to fucking do. Fuck everybody else. End of story. And that's it. Now you're a sovereign. It's that simple, right? So citizen, Obviously, we've already gone over that. That means a little bitch ass slave in a gimp suit on the ground on all fours, meowing, sucking dick, eating asshole, chunks of shit on the side of their mouth. That's what citizen means. So sovereign and citizen is fucking dumb, dude. That's like saying two totally opposite terms, one after the other. That's like saying a very motorcycle-y car. I don't know. It's like fucking retarded. A very motorcycle-y car, right? A Geo Metro would be a very motorcycle-y car, I guess. But you get the idea. It's fucking retarded. It's a hit piece term. It's pathetic. There is no such thing as a sovereign citizen. It doesn't exist. Anyone who says it exists, whether it's somebody who is a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen, or whether it's a fucking cop, or whether it's anybody else, is fucking retarded. They either fit one of two categories. They're either fucking retards. That's the first one. Or they know what's going on, and they're just trying to use that term as a way of trying to, like, emotionally stir people up or get people scared to look at this kind of information. Okay, so that's sovereign citizen. Okay. Next point. The Constitution does not give us rights. Rights are given by God. Okay, so the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and basically every other fucking thing under the sun, moon, and stars. You wouldn't say the Constitution gives me the right to bear arms. Now, the reason why you wouldn't say that, and the reason why you want to be a little careful about that, is because that means once the Constitution is gone or eliminated, because they're always trying to fucking kill that thing, the fucking whack jobs behind the curtain, they're always trying to kill that thing, right? They're trying to change it, mitigate it. I mean, all the fucking people in government right now are trying to change gun laws and do all this stuff. So you got to keep in mind, like, you don't want to tie your rights into something that can be taken away or taken for granted or destroyed or mitigated or clarified. That's a good one. Clarified. The Constitution does not give you rights. The Constitution is a human communication and codification of that of which has been given to you by God. There's a big difference. If the Constitution was gone tomorrow, my rights wouldn't shake 1 millimeter. Not one. So that is, that's another thing I wanted to go over in this video number 6. The next thing I wanted to go over with you guys is we've already gone over jurisdiction, we've gone over resident, alien, we've gone over all these different things. So we have 2 major jurisdictional zones, right? And I think you probably have seen this earlier in the video, but I'm going to show it to you again just to really point to it. So there's two separate jurisdictions, right? This is from U.S. versus Bevins. You have 2 separate jurisdictions within the United States of America. Now, thank you. United States of America. America. That covers everything, okay? 1, the federal zone, which is the District of Columbia, which is United States, which is Washington, D.C. That would probably, like I said before, also include all the territories such as Guam and Puerto Rico and whatever the fuck other ones there are. I'm sure there's other ones. And number 2, the 50 states. Okay? And that's super important. Here's another one I wanted to go over with you guys. Supreme Court case, Lansing versus Smith. People of a state. Now look at that fucking thing. That's lowercase. People of a state, lowercase, are entitled to all rights which formerly belong to the king by his prerogative. I forget. I think this might have been like the Magna Carta or something. I forget exactly what it was, but there was a section in time. I think it was the Magna Carta when the people in the area they kind of pushed up against the king real hard and they said, "Hey, motherfucker, like, we need rights, we need this, we need that." And then there was something that was released that basically stated that we're kind of all equal. Not really, but kind of, right? the Magna Carta, that kind of thing. That's basically what they're talking about here. This is from 1829 Supreme Court case, right? Now, there's some very, I'm very sorry to tell you, I'm just going to say it. There's some very, very ignorant people who are going to be watching this, and they say, "Oh, 1829, oh, a long time ago. Well, things have changed." Let me tell you, all definitions, all case law, all Supreme Court cases, all everything in law has all of the exact same value. So even to the point where, like, okay, recently they changed the fucking definition of what a machine gun is. The fucking ATF, right? Now, do you realize in a court of law, the old definition of a fucking machine gun has just as much validity in a court of law as the fucking new definition of a machine gun? Do you realize that an 1829 case law situation from the Supreme Court has just as much validity as what the Supreme Court said today or yesterday? It literally, in the definitions from the first edition of Black's Law, has just as much validity in a court of law as the brand new recently released Black's Law definitions. Now they will change that, and they will tell you that's not true because they want to change all the definitions, and all the definitions are way different than they used to be, and all this fucking horse shit because they're trying to control everything. The bottom line is the dates of things don't mean jack shit. They don't mean jack shit. Whether it's new, whether it's old, 200 years ago, it doesn't fucking matter. It's got just as much fucking clarity and importance in law as anything else, just to be very, very clear with you, which is why law is so fucking complicated. Law by definition, a court case or law by definition is basically battle. That's what it is. It's a battle of definitions. It's a battle of case law. It's a battle of all these things. It's not really a battle of facts, which is sad. It's a battle of all of this other bullshit, all the structure, right? So, and then the last thing I wanted to go over in this video, this one's probably going to be a little bit shorter, maybe, is we have a Supreme Court case. This says here, it says the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government and does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. This is a beautiful quote that really goes to show you what we're trying to do in this course when it comes to killing the biggest, nastiest, gnarliest contract of all, which is changing your status from U.S. citizen to a state national or becoming a state citizen, which is their terminology. Not mine. You know, you can use the term when it's like you kind of have to. There's not really a lot of choices. You don't really have a lot of choices, right? So when you say you're a U.S. citizen and you're saying like I live in the District of Columbia, when you become a state citizen, it's not the greatest word in the world, but you know when you do it, it's like you're officially becoming, and the government themselves is acknowledging the fact that you really do domicile and you are also a resident of California. Like, so all that shit that I was drawing for you in the last video, all this crazy, it's just, you just wipe all that shit out. Boom. When you get your passport, your 5-star passport, which we're going to go over later, you're just annihilating the whole thing. Now, you really do need to understand all this stuff. You know, for multiple reasons. First off, to get out of the trap, to get out of the matrix, but also in the future, they're offering you contracts all the time. And if you don't have the education, then how are you supposed to protect yourself from recontracting? You contract out, and then boom, a year later, you contract back in again. You didn't even know. So that the information that I gave you, as confusing as it was, is so important because you want to make sure that when you're out and you stay out. So, The 14th Amendment is when the slaves were. I don't really think I want to get into this too much. Let's just see here. The 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1868, granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former enslaved people, and guaranteed all citizens equal protection under the laws. It abolished slavery, blah, 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 blah. So, I'm not going to get into this too much. If you, it's, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. It's super complicated. Like, this time period is also when they redefine the word person. And it's just ultra complicated. Basically, this is the 14th Amendment is basically when this whole fucking country really started to go to shit. When they, and you might say, oh, well, you're racist because of blah, blah, blah. Dude, anyone who would even say that has not survived this course this long. They don't have the mental or emotional capacity to understand even 1% of this information. I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is not worried about, but what I am concerned about is, so when slavery was abolished, it basically it created two different type of citizenship status. This is actually the point in our past when the whole U.S. citizen versus state citizen thing was created, and it basically, the whole idea of the 14th Amendment was it was supposed to free the slaves, but in actuality, what it actually did was it enslaved all of us. Black people to this day, which I'll go over in a later video, they don't even have the same human rights as we do. They actually have civil rights, which is a lower level than even a U.S. citizen. And that's why they get targeted by police and stuff like that. They're easier targets. You can get away with more shit doing things to a black person in law than you can to any other race, which is really fucked and depressing. But you hear all this stuff about systemic racism. There actually is systemic racism, and the people who say that shit know what it is, and they hide it on purpose. The real systemic racism is that the fact that, black people have more to gain from doing all of these processes and becoming a fucking state national than anybody else does. You go from the very, very lower level of what rights you have as a human being in law to the very highest level. It's a huge jump, and it shocks people. Shocks police and stuff like that when they see that, because it's it's funny because I've been involved in state national stuff and all sorts of different groups online and stuff like that, and it's like the amount of blacks that are involved is just tremendously high, and some of the most amazing people that are finding all this cool shit that I've learned from are also black. So there is this natural attraction to citizenship status and killing contracts and changing your situation and regaining your human rights that the blacks have, that I think is fucking beautiful. I think there is this the United States, the District of Columbia, they make money based off of what services they provide. Okay. And they love to usurp and use the black community, because the black community, they deliver all these services to, right, which we're going to go over later. And they can build them and build them and build them. That's why they work so hard to get them on the Democratic side and all this bullshit, right? When you as a black person change your status and update your status and start killing all these contracts, you shake the system really fucking hard, because you are becoming a full human. I mean, we're all becoming a full human. It's just that the blacks, because of the 14th Amendment, you're going way higher on the scale. You have way more to gain from all of these processes that I'm going to be going over, like the WABEN, than anybody else. So the 14th Amendment basically sort of made everybody a slave, because it even says here on this form, all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So, and if you go back to the quote here that you saw, the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government and does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. So the 14th Amendment basically is talking about how like the various rights that you have as a U.S. citizen tied into the system in relation to the U.S. code and stuff like that. And it's a very clever way of saying, you know, you don't have any of these other really way better rights, which is state citizenship rights, but you do have protections, and you have it's a lot of hot air, honestly. So I wanted to go over that a little bit. It's a lot, and it's just not really terribly important, but it is something that I wanted to go over a little bit. The 14th Amendment is, if someone, you know, people ask me all the time, like, well, when did all this shit really start going down? Like, when did this shit really start going to hell? Like, when did America and humanity really start going to hell in a handbasket? And honestly, it was the 14th Amendment, and that's President Abraham Lincoln, you know, and he's exalted as this like fucking amazing dude who's the most amazing guy ever. And it's just like everything else. It's all upside down, man. I mean, Abraham Lincoln was kind of a piece of shit. He bankrupted the unincorporated America. He created the new incorporated United States. He destroyed Congress. I believe it was Lincoln who did that. I mean, he was, I don't know if he meant to do all this. I really don't know. But man, he fucked everything up really, really fucking bad. I mean, he was just awful. And it's got nothing to do with slavery. You know, just in general, he just sucked. So the 14th Amendment, you know, it freed the slaves, but it turned us all into slaves, including the blacks, just in a different way. Economic / penal slaves, I guess you could say, like PENAL, like a penal code type slaves, statute slaves. So studying the Fourth Amendment is interesting. You definitely should take a look at it for yourself. I'm not going to go over it too much. It's a lot. But that really is the major breaking point for America. And, you know, we're taught in school that Abraham Lincoln was this wonderful person. It really wasn't. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything I want to go over in number 6. And, yeah, I'll just keep this one kind of simple. All right. See you in video number 7.